गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी जय जय गणपति जय गणपति जय गणेश जय गणपति जय 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 गणपति जय गणपति जय गणेश जय गणपति जय जय गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी गणपति विघ्न विनाशनहारी जय जय गणपति जय गणपति जय गणेश जय गणपति जय 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 गणपति जय गणपति जय गणेश जय गणपति जय जय. Good morning all. Welcome to Co-Creating Your Reality. Well, I have no idea what I'm going to speak about until I decide to take a walk in nature, and I only now decide. So yesterday I would have taken a nice long walk to another nature spot called Plimbridge Woods. If you all in England and on this side of the country, it's a very unlike nature. It's, well, the whole of this place is just lovely nature, but that place in particular is very, 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 very calming, very peaceful, that you all can check out if you all are in the area. Plimbridge Woods is amazing for hiking, nature trails, so on, right? I had made a half-hour long video there, but I decided against posting it because the video contained certain things that may not be, in hindsight, I realized, in the best interest for me to post, in the best interest neither for myself nor for my viewers, right? So there are certain videos like that I do make, and I have to reflect on it and see whether or not it is indeed reflective of who I am, or if it is reflective of voices in my distracting voices in my head, you know. So everything I've posted so far is in fact reflective of me, right, and who I am. But there are specific videos that are the voices of distraction, and those are the ones that I'm in a period I'm learning to develop my discernment more, right, so that I can know who is actually speaking when I make these videos, right? So welcome to Co-Creating Your Reality, where we are discussing the sociology of health, right? And in my last couple of videos we would have spoken about physical health. Now physical health is inextricably intertwined with our mental, emotional, spiritual health, right? So I would have discussed the need to move your body a little bit every day, do a half-hour walking every day if you can, and also to align with spiritual law by virtue of being conscious of the things that you consume, right? The food products that you consume, right? So that's physical, that's regarding your physical health, right? Bearing in mind that physical intertwines with all these other aspects of life, right? I want to wrap up this conversation at this course on Sociology of Health, which is 3 classes. Yeah, this is a crash course in sociology, 3 months, where you will learn the essentials of how to navigate your personal life, how to become a moral human being, and how to be a sociologist, right, in just 3 months. Which is knowledge that I am offering based on my life experience and my academic education background, right? throwing God into the whole mix, right? So making God the center of this whole creation, right? Making God the center, which He is, of this entire creation that I am building here on my YouTube channel, right? So we have been speaking about the need to maintain and how through our cultural patterns we can change our behavior through understanding the crap in our cultural patterns. We can actually change our action in the world, change the way that we act in the world or behave, right? By virtue of things that we consume. Now today's video, which I'll be wrapping up the course, the Sociology of Health, with teaching the things that they do not teach in the classroom, right? Things that only can be learned through life experience and through educators or teachers who teach based on life experience, right? So this topic I want to wrap up talking about the sociology of your sexual health. The sociology of your sexual health. Now, sex and sexuality has remained a very, very much taboo topic, especially in Caribbean societies and so on. I don't know how it is or how communication is with children in these other places of the world and so on regarding this topic, right? Never really spoke to anyone about that, like in terms of how do they communicate with their children regarding matters of sex, sexuality, sexual pleasure, sex, just sex, right? But for the most part, this topic has been largely taboo, right? And that's why I want to openly communicate about the sociology of your sexual health today to wrap up this conversation, right? Now, sex is a pleasurable thing, right? In fact, it's the first point of sex, even before reproduction, because to reproduce in human beings, there must be some form of desire, there must be some form of attraction. Come on, let's just be completely real and open here. If there's somebody you are not attracted to, you're not going to approach that person to be in a relationship with them, right? If there's somebody that you are not attracted to, you're not going to approach that person to be in a relationship with them, right? Unless it is in a form where it's something where, you know, you grow after a while to be attracted to them or something, right? But on a average scale, you're not going to approach someone to be in a relationship or to have sex with you if you don't have some kind of physical attraction towards that person, right? So that physical attraction is actually, it comes before the reproduction aspect in human beings, right? The desire. So sex is a form of pleasure, right? It's a form of enjoyment, right? Unfortunately, this thing spirals out of hand sometimes, and sex turns into, your desire for sex turns into lust, and you start lusting, and then that becomes a whole other social problem, right? But we're just sticking on the topic of sex for now, right? And regulating your sexual health. Now, I would have, again using myself as an example, right? I would have been a virgin, meaning no sex, up until university, right? Up until university. That's why everybody go to release all their frustrations, apparently, right? So I would have been a virgin up until university, where I would have, all hell broke loose, right? So I've had several sexual experiences throughout my life, right? And as I always say, and these sexual experiences would have negatively bounced back on me, right? At some point in life. In fact, it is probably the reason why I am here making this whole series of videos, because of the problems that this thing caused in my life for me, right? Which is why I have to come here and teach, right? So along with a host of all the other wrong things that I have done in my life, right? Repaying karmic debt is what this is, right? And you can repay your karmic debt too by coming and teaching the things that you were supposed to learn in this life, or you have learned based on your life experience, right? So I would have been engaged in a lot of sexual activity in my past prior to last year and prior to the year before last year and stuff. And this would have, I would have received my karma for certain actions I've been involved in, and I understand how the law of cause and effect works, right? So I have seen karma play out in my own life, right, through the observation of my own life, right? There were certain things that I received negatively, certain negative responses from the universe I have received negatively, and now that I've changed my behavior, there are certain responses from the universe that I am receiving positively, right? So the first time I would have, well, when I would have lost my virginity via penetration sex, that experience was one that I engaged in, or I had, whilst I was not in my right senses, meaning I was in an altered state of consciousness, right? An altered state of consciousness. Meaning, it was actually the first time that I drank alcohol. It was the first time I drank alcohol. Now, is there anything wrong with drinking alcohol from a moral perspective? No, there isn't. There isn't, right? What becomes a social problem is the abuse of alcohol, which I always say, the abuse of alcohol creates a social problem, right? But from a moral perspective, your body, your choice, once you are not harming anybody else, right? Your body, your choice, once you are not harming anybody else, right? So the first time I would have had sex, it was also my first time consuming alcohol, right? And it was under the influence of not just one beer, 2 beers, but about 5 or 6 beers, right? And it was under those conditions that I would have lost my virginity, right? So I'm speaking about this openly for the sake of you helping, because I know that the females in my generation right now, most of them have kids and stuff, right? And I'm speaking this to help parenting, because yes, even though we are not parents as yet, we can in fact offer solutions. We can in fact offer solutions as to how to build a spiritual and moral family, right? So this is thoroughly offer suggestions, and is also for myself, right? Building for myself, right? So this is for parents of my generation who didn't actually get the sexual advice that they would have needed in life, right? Or the guidance, not the guidance only, but the communication that we would have needed to make the appropriate choices, right? Because not only communication, but how information is relayed or communicated to us. How information is relayed or communicated to us, right? Which is why I always advocate for open communication, right? Advocating for open communication so that we don't just communicate because we could communicate, but how information is relayed personally to us in our personal interactions with people, right? Because I could come online here and say whatever I want on my videos, but I know that if I am communicating with somebody regarding change behavior, I am 100% supportive towards them regarding it, right? And gentle towards them regarding it, right? So it's not just what we communicate to another person, it's how we communicate in person, one-on-one with that individual, right? So most of us would not, in my generation in the Caribbean, would not have had that open communication regarding the topic of sex with our parents, right? We would have had to figure out shit on our own, like they would have had to figure out shit on their own. But in their times, they would have lived their life based on, for the large part, based on tradition, right? Based on certain cultural patterns and so on. Our generation is in between. That's why I always say our generation is a very special one, because we are one in which we have 1 foot in, 1 foot out regarding the entirety my generation has one foot out, one foot in regarding the entirety of where we are at in history right now, regarding where the world was and where the world is headed, right? Because we know the past and we also have a foot in or a door in into the future, right? Regarding the time frame in which we were born, right? The time in which we were born and living currently, and our ability to perceive the world through the lens of that time in which we exist right now, right? So this is like people who were from, like, say 1985 to 1995 or so, right? Is a very different group of people, right? So we're talking about the regulation of our sexual health and how the lack of communication regarding sex and matters of sex would have influenced some of us to explore on our own, and how very specific things that would have happened to us in our lives and in our past, things that we have stumbled upon, things that presented itself to us, how our very specific life experiences would have persuaded us to explore the things that we were never told or talked about, right? So this is to encourage parents, mothers, fathers of my generation who have kids to really sit down your kids and talk to them about sex openly. Talk to them so that they will not have to learn about sex. They will not have to learn about sex from outside sources as their first point of contact or communication. They will not have to look at porn to know what sex is, to know what sex means, right? Because porn does not give in the least bit, right, an accurate picture of what sex is or sex should be. And most guys, especially girls too, right, most people come to their first understanding or knowledge of what sex is through pornography. And this is a socialized, culturally socialized phenomena, is a socialized a phase in the lives of most, and especially where this is easily accessible. I mean, you could just type in anything in Google and it comes up, right? It comes up. There's nothing hidden anymore regarding these things, right? There's nothing hidden anymore. You could literally type in whatever you want in Google and it comes up in front of your face, right? So it is unfortunate that the first point of contact or communication is via technology, one, and is via technology, one, and is via pornography too, right? Because pornography, I would suggest that parents take time to carefully socialize their children and educate their children about matters of sex, communicate with them, so that their first point of contact or knowledge in the world regarding sex and sexuality is not going to be sitting around watching a screen with and thinking about it. This concept or this idea, when you sit down and think about pornography, right, you will realize how much of a warped concept this is when you sit down and think about it from the core, and which is what parents encourage their children to do because of their lack of communication or not communicating with their children about sex, so that children have to go and educate themselves using pornography, which is a business. Pornography is a business, a sex industry, right? The sex industry, right? Pornography business, right? Sex business, right? So just imagine, and parents often wonder, oh, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Now, I understand that parents, there's no manual for parenting, but there is, right? There's no manual for parenting, right? And we learn as we go. But in hindsight, when we look back and we ask ourselves, parents ask themselves the question, what did I do wrong? Many things, right? And this is not to lay blame, this is to answer your question, what did you do wrong, right? So that we can also help the future generation to do the right things, right? So one of the things that is done wrong generally in parenting, you don't talk to your children, you don't fucking talk to your children, right? Simple, right? And about matters in which they were created. We were all born out of sex, so why is sex a hard topic to talk about when we were born out of the act of sex? We are a product. We were born out of your sexual activity, so why is it that sex is a hard topic for you to talk to us about, right? Simple. This is for parents going forward onto how to socialize your children and so on, right? Same thing applies with, say, drinking, smoking and things. I decided that if I were to have a child in the future, right, and that child wants to go for a drink with their friends, whatever, right, prior to that experience, I will give that child a drinking experience. I will give that child a smoking experience, right? Because either way they're going to go out into the world if they want, and they will experience this sooner or later, right? So it makes no sense hiding these things, telling them, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, which is what religion does, which is what culture does, tell you, oh, this practice is wrong, this is wrong. Whilst it might be wrong, your approach and how you're doing it can make the world of a difference, right? Your approach and how you approach the matter can make a world of a difference. So you want to experience alcohol, you want to experience sex as a teenager, you want to experience whatever. Hey, bring home your boyfriend or girlfriend and have sex in the house here, right? So you wouldn't have to go in a freaking guest house to hide from your parents to be like, oh, I want to experience sex for the first time, right? You want to have a drink? Let us drink together as a family, right? I will pour your first drink for you, right? You want to take a smoke? I will smoke that first smoke with you, right? And have that child experience that high in a controlled environment where you are actually supervising your child, right? And then after, based on the experience, if they so desire to go out into the world, because at some point they becomes an adult and you can make a child mind, you can socialize a child, but if a child has the desire to break away from that programming or that conditioning, the child will do it sooner or later, right? So give that child the first experience of what they want under your supervision, and then let them make their decision as an adult human being, right, as to what direction they choose to go, right? But I am not, if I were to have a child, I will not be the type of parent who am like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, because like I say, the first, once you tell somebody don't do something, that's the moment that they actually want to do it, right? Once you tell a child not to do something, or a teenager not to do something, that's the first instance that they gravitate towards doing that thing, right? So this is also, I didn't think I would have been doing this, but this is also a manual to parenting, right, based on my life experiences as a child and as a teenager, and me having, abandoned certain things that my parents taught me to find my way, and then to find my way back, right? So we're talking about the sociology of sexual health and how you can help your child to become sexually healthy, right? And not have to go out and explore to figure out your child. Talk to your child about sexual orientation. Talk to your child about their desires, their needs, right? Just talk, right? Simple. Now we're going to throw in this topic of alcohol in a mix, or stimulants, smoking, whatever it is, right? Because remember, the first time I lost my virginity, it was not just sex I had, but it was sex whilst I was high. Sex whilst I was high, right? Or in an altered state of consciousness. It was beers that I had prior to having sex, right? So now I will introduce the topic of, not introduce, but carry on. Remember, I was keeping you all abreast of my dating story when I was back in Trinidad and stuff. I was making videos about my dating story, right, and progressing on my dating journey, right? So I will continue with that today, and I will say that I had to block my date last night, and I tried to explain why, right? I tried to explain why. It was the second time that I blocked him, and I tried to explain why. But I don't know if he would understand, because my journey is a very specific and unique one. It's unique to me, but it actually can be used as a blueprint, right? It actually can be used as a blueprint to help others to discover themselves, one, to align with spiritual laws, to find back themselves, two, right? And to eliminate the negative patterns in their life regarding all things, whether it's stimulants, whether it's sex, negative sexual patterns, anything, right? My life can actually be used, or my journey can be used as a blueprint to help others to come out from this mode of operating, right? So I would have had to block my date, and he may not understand why, right? I don't mind unblocking him and stuff, because I saw I receive a TikTok message asking to unblock, right? But and I just might, I don't know, right? But I'm not forming any kind of attachments to anybody again in this life. Reason being is that the specific journey that I am on in this life is not one that will easily be understood by mankind. It's not one that will be easily understood by mankind, but it will only be understood by people who are willing to understand my walk with God, right? With whom I had an encounter with last year. And people might think I'm delusional for saying this, but I know what I've experienced, right? And so this encounter with God would have prompted me to create this spiritual sociology, which was my desire since I was going to university, undergrad university. I had the desire in my heart to create a spiritual sociology, right? And here I am now fulfilling that desire of mine outside of the mainstream academic system, right? So I'm actually living out my dream, right? So people in my life, a lot of people will not understand why I had to block them or block their energy from mine at specific points in my life for specific reasons, based on where I was on my journey, right? Based on where I was on my spiritual journey, because I've been on a spiritual journey since the day I was born, right, on this earth, right? And I would have had to block certain energies from me due to where I was on my spiritual journey, right? Or where I have to continue to do so, right? And the truth is that when you really walk with God, the road is a lonely one. The road is a lonely one. So as I was saying, I was dating, and dating is a process of getting to know someone, right? And sociology of health is dating is incorporated into the sociology of health. Dating is incorporated into the sociology of health, because to date or to be in a relationship with someone, you first should be a healthy human being. And this is the reason God would have placed the desire in my heart to make sociology of health the first course in the series of courses I'll be teaching, right? The first core course, sociology of health, in my video series, right? First, because you need to be in a relationship, you need to be a healthy human being. To be in a relationship, because I had a negative pattern about me where I would move from one relation to the other, whether it's be via temptations or whatever it is, right? Or seeking someone who is aligned with my spiritual journey and so on, right? Regardless of why I would have been going from one relation to the other, it was a search, right? But it was also a negative pattern that I had to exit from, a cycle, right? So whilst I was in the process of exiting that cycle, my date would have presented himself to me. And this is the reason I'm explaining why I had to block my date, right? Why I had to block him, right? It is because you would have presented yourself to me as a distraction based on where I am on my spiritual journey right now, right? And I'll explain what I mean. And that is why in the book that I would have written, it says that we are blocked from accessing each other's energy until irrelevant changes are made, if you so desire to walk this path with me, right? With the understanding that I am walking a particular and unique pathway, and anything that is obstructing that pathway will have to leave, right? Anything that is anything that is distracting me from the path that God instructed me to walk will have to be removed from my life, right? I'm sorry to say it like that, but I'm not sorry at the same time, because I am not going to allow myself to fall back into the same negative patterns that I've been trying to work so hard to come out of, right? And that's something that you need to realize and others need to realize as well, right? I am exiting myself from very particular cycles that I've been engaged in, right? And doing that requires me to have a very particular kind of strength and courage, right? Talking here one thing is not something that anybody could just come and do about these issues. right? Doing what I am doing here is not something any and anybody is willing to come and do. That's a form of courage that's different on the whole, right? Having the strength now to actually fight the temptations of the world is another form of strength on the whole. So when we, because me and you are open, we have open conversations, right? It's something that our relationship is premised on, right? So we would have communicated openly about sex and these things, right? And one of the things that you would have requested is that, you know, you would like to experience sex with me whilst high, right? Particularly using weed, marijuana, and so on. Now, marijuana is a plant. I have nothing against marijuana if other people use it and stuff. But when it comes to me, I already experienced my couple experiences with marijuana in the past, and I don't need that to experience a high, right? I don't need weed or marijuana to experience a God high or a sex high, right? Right? I like my sexual energy is enough on its own, right? My sexual energy is enough on its own for me to experience my high and for me to give someone else a high, right? So I don't need any external stimulants, and I hope that you understand that we are probably just not on the same page spiritually, right? That if I've been celibate for so long, I've not smoked, right? I've tried smoking, it's not my thing, right? I've been celibate for so long. Why would I now want to, after I would have drank and have sex in my first sexual experience at UE, right? Then during my work life, I would have experienced marijuana on its own, right? Not with sex or anything, but on its own. I would have experienced different things separately. Why now at this point when I'm actually walking my walk with God, right? When I'm walking my walk with God, right? Would I want to give in to the things that you are telling me to do or asking me to do? Sorry, right? Why would I be willing to compromise the values that I developed through my walk with God, right? Why would I now to go back to that experience when that was drinking and having sex, or altered states of consciousness and having sex was a thing that I did since whenever it is I graduated, was my last year in UE and so on, right? 2012 or so on, right? That was my character 2012 or so. We are in 2023 and we are supposed to be spiritually evolving, right? We are supposed to be spiritually evolving, right? I am on a progressive spiritual journey. I'm not on a regressive journey, right? And this is the reason I had to block you, because you were encouraging me to give in to certain things or to repeat my past behaviors when there's something that I'm trying to come out of, right? Now I understand that sex and so on is something with your partner. You know, you're not going to smoke outside, you're not going to drink outside, whatever, right? You're doing it with your partner and so on. But you specifically wanted the experience of high sex. Now, I know that I can experience high sex without any external stimulant, right? I am not going to put myself in a position, right? I am not going to lower my state of consciousness, and it is lowering my state of consciousness by taking in something that's external to me in order to have sex, right? It's not something that is necessary for me. Yeah, it's not something that's necessary to me, neither is it something that I desire. So we are not on the same page, right? We are not on the same page. Maybe not as yet. Maybe we can be, but we just not, right? Because I'm about helping to better my own self without the need of any external stimulants to do anything, especially regarding sex. Right now, because I've been celibate for so long, and because I've been walking with God for this period of time in my life, I've come to value my sexual energy a lot more than I did in the past, right? I've come to value my energy, not just sexual, but my general energy, right? Way much more than I would have done in the past, right? So why would I move from having sex with alcohol? I would have started my sexual journey, right? Why would I? Well, we are supposed to be progressing, right? We are supposed to be on a progressive spiritual evolutionary journey. Why would I now want to end my sexual journey because the next person I have sex with I would like to spend the rest of my life with them, right? If there's to be such a person at all, right? Why would I want to experience that, to end my sexual journey being high on some stimulant, right? That is not something that I desire. It's not something that I desire, even if it's just to try it. Even if it's just to try it, right? Because I know what I bring to the table at this time in my life, right? And I don't need, you are free to fulfill your fantasies or your desires with anybody in the world, right? But I am not going to have it, right? I'm not going to have it. And these are the reasons why I had to block you, or I could unblock you, right? It's not a problem with me. But you need to understand my walk and the specific journey I am on and my purpose here, and certain things that I'm not going to compromise, right? Certain things that I'm not going to compromise anymore, right? Or have anybody distract me, right? Because the reality is that you presented yourself, and the your presentation of yourself to me was in fact a distraction, or you may not have known, but you are being used by destructive forces, right, to distract me from my journey. So it's either you come on board with the journey, or it's either you fall off, right, from that. Because I am willing to walk my path alone if nobody is willing to walk it with me, right? So my goal is to really do away with the stimulants, right? As I encourage people to do away with the meat consumption, right? Do away with the stimulants and do away with meat consumption, and to really develop yourself as a healthy human being, right? Do away with the negative sexual patterns, right? And to develop yourself as a healthy being before you can get into a healthy relationship and create a healthy family. And we will be discussing the sociology of families in the future, right?